He was dismissed from Trinity College when he was convicted and fined for his anti-war activities. We need to question ourselves, oh, is it right? Oh, what I'm doing is correct, what they're doing is correct, what I'm following is correct. It is very important. So regularly challenging beliefs. So always we try to believe something when we have a proper evidence. So as central theme, the main theme in Russell's essay is skepticism and doubt. Hello everyone, welcome to session 1 of first sem BCom English, essay 2, How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish by Bertrand Russell. Myself, B. Shobharani, faculty in English, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence in MYSURU. In this particular session where I am going to discuss about a very important essay called How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish by Bertrand Russell, I'll be introducing you the author of this essay, that is Bertrand Russell, about the author, then the main contents or the themes of the essay, practical application along with the conclusion. As well, we have a glossary, that is the meanings of the important words which we come across in first sem BCom English textbook, and the comprehension questions that will be asked from the examination point of view, as well the essay type of questions from this very important essay by Bertrand Russell called How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish. Moving on to the author. What do you mean by this essay? How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish? Intellectual rubbish means false belief, baseless opinions, superstitions of various kinds. So how to avoid all such false belief or false opinions or superstitions of various kinds is being what explained in this essay called How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish by Bertrand Russell. So let us understand about this very important author of the essay called Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell, 1872 to 1970, was a prominent British thinker, philosopher, logician, that is expert in logic, social critic and essayist of the 20th century. So Bertrand Russell was a multifaceted figure where he was a prominent British thinker, philosopher, logician, social critic and essayist of the 20th century. He made significant contributions to mathematics as well, logic and philosophy. His grandfather, Lord John Russell, had twice served as Prime Minister under Queen Victoria. After the death of his parents, he went to live with his grandparents. He was elected also to the Royal Society in 1908. He was dismissed from Trinity College when he was convicted and fined for his anti-war activities. He inspired a lot of youths through his anti-war, anti-nuclear activities and protests. See, he was also a source of inspiration to many youth through his anti-war, anti-nuclear activities and protests. He released Einstein-Russell Manifesto, that is views of the issuer, with Albert Einstein in 1955 as a protest against the use of nuclear weapons. As I have already mentioned, he was an anti-war activist and anti-nuclear activist. He also campaigned against Western involvement in the Vietnamese War. He was a prolific writer credited with more than 60 books and over 2,000 essays. See, he was a prolific, very good writer where he wrote around 60 books and as well 2,000 essays. And one of the essay what I am going to discuss in today's session, that is How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish, is one of the most fascinating essays of Bertrand Russell. He was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1950, the highest prize what he got. That is, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1950. Russell remained an influential public figure. As I said, he had inspired many youths, as I said, through his anti-war and anti-nuclear activities and protests. Russell remained an influential public figure until his death at the age of 97. See, he lived a long life up to an age of 97. Russell's essay, this particular essay what I am going to discuss in today's session, How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish, illustrates how foolish opinions, as I said, what do you mean by intellectual rubbish? False belief, baseless opinions, superstitions of various kinds, or foolish opinions and dogmatism, holding on to a particular view, whatever I say is right, can be avoided by following simple rules. So that is the main theme of this essay, how to avoid or how to escape from the false belief or baseless opinions. Observation, traveling and communication with people are some of the foolproof methods advocated by the writer for overcoming intellectual rubbish. Yes, of course, keen observation and traveling and communication with many people will make us understand what is right and what is wrong, and we will not hold on to our only views always. So we will get to know maybe sometimes even what we think or what we say is wrong. So Bertrand Russell's essay, How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish, addresses the common pitfalls of human thought and the ways individuals can avoid intellectual errors. So this is very important. So how can you avoid these small errors, or what we call it as intellectual errors, by using the presence of mind and the thought and the feelings times when needed. Russell's work, infused with his characteristic wit and philosophical insight, serves as a guide to critical thinking and intellectual integrity. Moving on to the contents of the essay. The whole of the essay has been divided into the main themes like recognizing prejudices. Prejudices means action. Russell begins by emphasizing the importance of recognizing one's own prejudices. He notes that everyone harbors biases, often unconsciously, which can distort thinking. To escape intellectual rubbish, one must be willing to examine and challenge these prejudices critically. This process requires self-awareness and a commitment to intellectual honesty. Moving on to the second theme of this essay, that is skepticism and doubt. Skepticism means unwilling to believe, having questions and knowing when to ask. A central theme in Russell's essay is the role of skepticism, that is unwilling to believe. So always we try to believe something when we have a proper evidence. So a central theme, the main theme in Russell's essay is skepticism and doubt. He advocates for a healthy dose of skepticism in evaluating beliefs and claims. So if somebody believes something, even we also follow the same belief, but we don't even think twice, okay, fine, is it right or wrong? Do we have a proper evidence for that belief? All that we don't think. So he advocates for a healthy dose of skepticism in evaluating beliefs and claims. This does not mean adopting a cynical, that is, feeling of distrust, dismissive attitude, but rather than maintaining an open-minded and questioning approach. Very important is open-mindedness. So when you have differences with somebody, just call them and try to communicate with them and clear the doubts what you have among yourselves. So open-mindedness and questioning approach is very important, where we can avoid this intellectual errors. Russell warns against dogmatism, that is, each one of us have our views and we always hold on to that, but whatever I say is right, so that is wrong. So sometimes even we are not right, the other person or other people might be right. So at that point of time, we should not hold on to our own views, which he views as a significant barrier to intellectual errors. Next, the influence of authority. Always we say, I am right, I am superior. So that attitude we need to change ourselves. If not, definitely we will be making lots of intellectual errors. So as I said, the very theme of this essay is to how to avoid intellectual rubbish. So, the influence of authority. Russell discusses the influence of authority on human thought. People often accept ideas uncritically if they come from an authoritative sources, whether it might be religious, political, or academic. Russell wants the readers to question authority and to seek evidence and reason rather than relying solely on the opinions of others. So we should not always rely on the opinions of others. We need to question the authority and seek proper evidence and proof. Then only we need to come to a conclusion of the opinions. He highlights the importance of independent thinking, very, very important. Always we should have rational thinking. We should be very independent in thinking. We should not depend upon others. So when we rely on others, sometimes there are where we are going to make mistakes. And the courage to dissent when necessary. So always accept the failures. Sometimes when we go wrong, accept, yes, of course I am wrong. Okay, fine, sorry, I will not commit it again. But we are very much, the ego will stop us from accepting the failures. Emotional and psychological factors. Yes, of course, very, very important. Sometimes even emotional and psychological factors will also make us to commit this intellectual rubbish. The essay explores the impact of emotional and psychological factors on intellectual integrity. Russell acknowledges that emotions can cloud judgment. Yes, of course. Emotions are something which is going to rule us, and sometimes it is also going to cloud judgments, means it is going to overrule the judgment and lead to irrational beliefs. Very important it is. He advises cultivating a dispassionate and objective mindset where reason takes precedence over emotion. This approach helps in making more balanced and thoughtful decisions. Then common intellectual fallacies, that is the false belief. Here you can see in this beautiful picture, that is a hedgehog. So in this essay, he has given an example of a hedgehog where it eats the black beetles. But really nobody has seen that it is an unappetizing diet for this hedgehog. But nobody has gone and observed whether it is really eating, but we come to a conclusion that saying that yes, of course hedgehogs eat black beetles. So, common intellectual beliefs or false belief. Even Aristotle was of the opinion that women have lesser teeth than men, but he never had thought of going back home and asking his wife to open her mouth and count the number of teeth. So, that is what. So, common intellectual fallacies. Here, Russell identifies several common intellectual fallacies that people often fall into. These include confirmation bias, the tendency to favor information that confirms over pre-existing beliefs and to ignore or dismiss evidence contradicts them. Ad hominem. So like we have so many arguments. We have several arguments to make. Attacking the person making an argument rather than addressing the argument itself. Very important is we keep on arguing and say, yes, no, whatever I say is right, whatever you say is wrong. No, sometimes think rationally, think calmly, then we will get to know that the arguments what we make is, yes, of course, arguments are very important part of our communication, but at times maybe we go wrong. Appeal to tradition, assuming something is true or rightly simple because it has been traditionally accepted. We try to follow the same tradition that has been followed from days past, but nobody will question why should we follow that. You should ask question. I think we might have seen children. So whenever we celebrate some puja or a function or this one, they will ask why is this been done. So at that point of time, we need to give the correct explanation of the importance of that celebration or maybe festivals. So it's not like from many years, all our ancestors are following, even we need to follow. That is also, he has given an example of a set of people in China where they have this pigtails. So because from many a days, the ancestors are wearing pigtails, even the present generation people also are wearing. But what is the reason for wearing that pigtail? Nobody. But now people are very wise enough to ask why we should follow that tradition. So false dilemmas, presenting a situation as having only two possible outcomes when in reality there might be multiple alternatives. So we always hold on to one solution, but when we think very deeply into that problem, then maybe we'll get multiple solutions. So that is what he means by false dilemmas, presenting a situation as having, so the problem will have, we think that it is only this is the way to get it solved. But when we think wisely, there might be many ways where we can solve the problem and avoid the intellectual rubbish. Then the role of science is, of course, always science is nothing but fact or reality. So Russell provides examples of these fallacies and offers strategies for avoiding them. Russell highlights the role of science as a powerful tool for escaping intellectual rubbish. He praises the scientific method for his emphasis on evidence, experimentation, and even review. Science, according to Russell, provides a reliable means of acquiring knowledge and testing hypotheses. Science, as I said, is nothing but fact or reality, and it is a fact or reality, and you cannot change the fact or the reality in science. He encourages a scientific mindset that values skepticism, empirical evidence, and the willingness to revise beliefs in light of new information. Moving on to the next theme of this essay, How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish by Bertrand Russell, Education and Intellectual Curiosity. Yes, of course, education plays a very crucial role in developing critical thinking skills or maybe even the thoughts. So Russell advocates for an education system that fosters intellectual curiosity, open-mindedness, and a love for learning. So education, according to Russell, is a very, very important tool to avoid the intellectual rubbish. As he says, Russell advocates for an education system that fosters intellectual curiosity, open-mindedness, and a love of learning. He criticizes rote learning and authoritarian teaching methods, arguing that they stifle creativity and independent thought. Instead, he calls for an education that encourages questioning and exploration. Very, very important. So he wants education system to be in such a way that it encourages questioning and exploration. Then moving on to the next theme of this essay, intellectual humility. Russell emphasizes the importance of intellectual humility. Recognizing the limits of one's knowledge and being open to the possibility of being wrong are essential traits for avoiding intellectual rubbish. So sometimes possibility of being wrong are essential traits for avoiding. So whenever we have a discussion with a friend or a relative or a near one or a very close people, at that point of time we might be very wrong in our decision or in our argument. But at that point of time we should be very, very wise enough to understand maybe what I'm telling is wrong. In that way, you can avoid this intellectual rubbish. Russell warns against the arrogance of certainty and the dangers of thinking one has all the answers. There are some people telling that I know everything. I'm so very clever. I'm so very intelligent. But learning is something which is never ending. So there are so many things which we need to learn till we die. And so in that case, we should accept that, yes, of course, I don't know something. Maybe there is something more to learn for me. So the intellectual humility allows for growth and the continuous pursuit of truth. In the final sections, so he explains about what is practical application here. In the final sections of the essay, Russell offers practical advice for applying these principles in everyday life. So practical application of all these very important traits or behavior is very important for us to avoid this intellectual rubbish. So regularly challenging beliefs. Make a habit of questioning your beliefs and seeking out opposing viewpoints. Always we need to question ourselves. Oh, is it right? Oh, what I'm doing is correct. What they're doing is correct. What I'm following is correct. It is very important. So regularly challenging beliefs. Engaging in critical discussion, very important. Critical thinking is very important for us to arrive at a proper decision. So engage in discussions with others who have different perspectives. So each one of, when we are discussing with a good number of people, each one will have their own views and we will get different opinions there and different perspectives, and be willing to listen and learn. Very important is we need to listen to what the other speaker speaks. So at that, always it should not be one-way traffic where like I keep on talking and don't allow the opposite speaker to speak. So we need to listen carefully to what the other people speak. Then seeking reliable sources, very important. So be discerning about the sources of information you rely on. So if at all the sources of information are wrong, so don't rely on them, but prioritize those that evidence-based and credible. Practicing intellectual discipline, very important in life is discipline, and practicing intellectual discipline is very much needed where we can avoid this intellectual rubbish. So cultivate habits of critical thinking such as examining assumptions, evaluating evidence, and avoiding logical fallacies, that is the false beliefs. So finally, interesting essay, How to Escape Intellectual Rubbish. The author Bertrand Russell concludes by reiterating rubbish for personal and societal well-being. He believes that a commitment to critical thinking and intellectual integrity can lead to a more enlightened and just society. By following the principles outlined in his essay, individuals can contribute to the progress of knowledge and the betterment of humanity. So nicely he has concluded his essay, How to Avoid Intellectual Rubbish. So moving on to the glossary. Unappetizing, as I said, so Aristotle was of the opinion that hedgehogs eat black beetles, which is an unappetizing diet. So what do you mean by unappetizing? Not attractive as food. So it is not so very interested to eat. Dogmatism, holding on to a particular view, that is insisting on the truth of one's opinion without evidence. Insular, ignorant of or uninterested in cultures, ideas, or peoples outside one's own experience. Manchus, as I said, the Manchus are a Tungus East Asian ethnic group native to Manchuria in Northeast. Perverse, stubbornly opposed to. Refutation, the action of proving a statement or theory to be wrong or false. Hypothetical, it's a belief based on assumptions. Inherently, by nature. Odd, anything. Elixir of life, a divine substance that made somebody immortal. Talismans, charms owned by the superstitious people, spells and incantations, magic formula used for their magic effect. Hellenistic, that is Greek. So these are some of the very important meanings that you come across in the textbook of first sem BCom English in essay, that is unit 3, that is about essay 2, How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish by Bertrand Russell. Moving on to the type of comprehension questions that are asked from the examination point of view from this very interesting essay called How to Escape or How to Avoid Intellectual Rubbish, that is the false belief or baseless opinions or superstitions of various kinds, which literally means intellectual rubbish. So first question, like what type of comprehension questions might be asked from this particular essay? How can one avoid the silly error according to Bertrand Russell? Second question, what are the advantages of having an imaginary argument with a person having different bias? Third question, how could Aristotle avoid the mistake about women's teeth? As I said, Aristotle was of the opinion that women have lesser teeth than, he could have come to the conclusion telling that women have lesser teeth than man by observing the number or counting the number of teeth in his own wife's mouth. So in arithmetic there is knowledge, but in theology there is only one. So arithmetic there is knowledge, in theology it is nothing but religion. What we call theology is religion. How could one avoid dogmatism? Because holding on to a set of views always is something very bad. So how can one avoid dogmatism? What are the common sources of error? How does fear lead us to error? Mention the 2 ways of avoiding fear. So these are some of the comprehension questions that would be asked from this particular essay called How to Avoid or How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish. Moving on to the essay type of question which is asked, which is for 10-mark question. From the essay part, they are going to ask in your end semester examination, like what type of essay type of questions will be asked from this particular essay called How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish by Bertrand Russell. Write a description of the ways suggested by Bertrand Russell to escape intellectual rubbish. So, write a description. What are the ways suggested by Bertrand Russell to escape intellectual rubbish? Comment on the ways of getting rid of dogmatism. Why does Bertrand Russell emphasize the recognition of personal prejudices and how one can critically examine them. Fourth question, how does Bertrand Russell differentiate between healthy skepticism and cynicism, and why is skepticism important for intellectual integrity? Fifth question, what role does authority play in shaping human thought according to Bertrand Russell, and how can individuals cultivate independent thinking? So these are some of the essay type of questions where you need to write a page and a half about the very important theme and concept of this important essay called How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish by Bertrand Russell. Hope you all have understood this very important essay, that is the essay 2 of Unit 3 of First Sem BCom English. That is a very important essay called How to Escape from Intellectual Rubbish by Bertrand Russell. Thank you.